Over the last several years, I have discovered that we actually have power over our thoughts. And to me, this has been so freeing because I have actually struggled a bit in the past with being a little bit negative and kind of camping out in there. And then as you start to get around people that are the same, that can grow. And who wants to live like that? Not me. I don't want to live like that. And actually, I have had a period of time in my life where I had struggled with anxiety, and to the point that I got help. And I'm so thankful that I did, and that is why I wanted to bring this video to you, because we can actually overcome so many things, and we can plug in the term. So all of the terms are different, but the method is the same. So maybe it's an eating disorder, maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's negative thought patterns, but the method is the same. Who better to get on this video to talk to you about this than somebody who actually knows the backstory, who has studied the brain and how it functions and how we can have control over our thoughts. So here we go. I have the privilege of sitting here today with Steve Ellis, who has a PhD in Christian counseling, and he knows a whole lot more about my brain than I do. And so we're going to turn this time over to him, where he is going to share the power of thoughts, the power that we have over our thoughts, believe it or not. Just kind of break it down in a real simple form to where we can kind of understand and maybe take ownership. I think it's really important. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. You know, as we've talked before, you know, from a health standpoint, there's all kinds of things that come into play as far as what makes us healthy. And when we think about that, we usually think body. Well, if you will add brain into that, because the brain is the thing that functions everything else in the body. So it's all important. I mean, our gut levels, our, nutrition, whatever we take, it's critically important. But when you think about it from all of that causing your brain to be healthy, then when your brain is healthy, then everything else works a lot better.
Right.
But we don't hardly ever realize that there are things that we can do that causes our brain to be healthy, or things that we do to cause our brain to be unhealthy.
Yep, exactly.
Kind of crazy.
Well, you've got a whiteboard over there, and I think that you can give us a little demonstration to kind of break it down so that we can understand on a surface level, because it is so important. And what I have learned over the years is that I actually have power, and we need to know how to access that.
I've been doing this now for probably the last almost 15 years, and what I'm going to show you is basic to understanding brain function. Now, we're talking about brain health, but if you understand brain function, then you understand how the health of your brain works better. And it's the difference between mind and brain. Now, we're talking about brain health, but you need to understand this difference between mind and brain to be able to understand how to keep your brain healthy. And I use this illustration on the board here. The mind, if you will look up over 400 references to the word mind in the Old Testament, you're going to find the basic definition of that word is essence of who we are. Well, the essence of who we are is that eternal part of us, that soul, that spirit part of us. Now, the mind is what creates the thought. Our thoughts come from our mind. They don't come from our brain. And here's the reason why. When God designed our brains, when He has developed this amazing instrument that is the control of everything else that goes on in our body, it is absolutely phenomenal as to how this functions. When it's functioning well, it's amazing. When it functions bad, it's amazing on both ends of the spectrum. But our mind creates the thought then goes to our brain, and our brain just processes that thought. It's the processor of what our mind sends it. And you say, whoa, wait a minute, how does that work? And well, I'm going to show you that. Our brain is the processor, and it processes stuff with a chemical chemical reaction, and that chemical reaction is either positive or negative chemicals, and the end result of that chemical processing is some type of action or some type of behavior. Now, when people want to change and start eating healthy, they have a hard time doing that, and I'm going to show you why they have a hard time changing, and we have a hard time changing any kind of behavior, and it's because we're concentrating on the wrong thing. What we have to do is concentrate on the thought process. So, if I were to drop this marker right here, the reason I drop that marker is this because of my brain or because of my mind? And the answer is yes, it's both, but our mind is what generates the thought. Drop this marker. Then that thought goes to my brain, and my brain just processes that with chemical reaction, and that action is the result of that. So actions start in the mind, not the brain. Now, here's what I draw the brain like, and here's what I use for neurons in the brain. I had a doctor show me this one time. He wrote up on the board like this. I've been doing it ever since. These are your neurons in your brain. We have 100 billion of those in our brain. There's a debate about this, but they say we use about 10 billion of those in our lifetime. And my question is, what's the other 90 billion for? And I got all kinds of reasons as to why that is, but 100 billion neurons in our brain. Now, what happens is when we have a thought, when that thought goes to our brain just processes that thought. It's just like a computer. A computer will pull up a Bible program, or it'll put up a pornography program based on what I tell it to do. The computer's just going to process the information that I give it. Well, in that scenario, I'm the mind, the computer's the brain. Well, when you know that difference, then you know the thought goes to the brain then just processes that thought with those positive and negative chemicals, turns that thought into an electrical impulse that goes down in the example of this marker, goes down through my cerebellum, down through my fingers and tendons, and I turn that loose. Now, it takes about a nanosecond for that to happen. That's why people have a hard time seeing the difference between mind and brain. Okay, the other thing about keeping your brain healthy is the number of blood vessels in our brain is amazing. If you were to take all the blood vessels out of your brain and put them in a string, make a rope, in other words, out of all of them, you're going to have a rope of blood vessels that is 100,000 miles long. That's 4 times around the planet. That's why when there's a brain injury, then we have a lot of blood flow because of the brain injury. Okay, now blood flow is important because our oxygen that in the blood is what our neurons eat. So, in essence, our neurons function based on oxygen. So shut the oxygen off to the brain, and you're going to shut off function of the brain. Okay, well, oxygen gets to the brain through the blood flow. Okay, well, those are, if there's 100,000 mile rope in our brain, then it's pretty tiny. It's pretty tiny. And it doesn't take a lot for us to clog up those vessels in our brain. With what? With things that we eat, and because of things that we may not eat, okay? But the number one killer of the brain is, and what you talk to people about all the time, the number one killer in our lives is sugar. Because sugar, what sugar does is it scars the edges of our blood vessels, and so here comes cholesterol rolling through here, and it catches on those, and then we have a clog of cholesterol. The cholesterol is not the problem, it's the scarring of the blood vessels, and it doesn't take a whole lot of scarring in our brain for those tiny little blood vessels to get clogged up. And when they get clogged up, oxygen shuts off. When the oxygen shuts off, there's no brain function in that particular area of the brain. Now, when we're thinking about what to do that produces behavior, it's good to understand how that works neurologically. When you have a thought process, that thought process starts a neurological pathway that produces the behavior, but it begins as a pathway of thought. So when your pathways are repeated over and over and over and over and over, when those pathways are repeated, then the behavior gets almost automatic. If it goes so much to the degree of repetition that it eventually becomes an addiction, then you have a real problem with whatever the addiction is. That addiction can be to food, it could be to alcohol, it could be to drugs, it could be whatever. And the drugs and alcohol have the extra chemical effect on your brain as well. So to keep your brain healthy, what they need to do, what people need to do, is exactly what you're teaching people to do. And that is eat things that help our body metabolize the proteins, the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals that it needs so that it can be healthy. Now, when you do that, you're also doing that to your brain. But another thing that helps in brain health is, here's a cool thing, there's a chemical in our brain that is released that's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And the thing that releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor more than anything else, positive thought. So when Jesus says, whatsoever things are good, right, just, holy, pure, think on these things or do these things? Think on these things. Well, if we're thinking on those things, those are positive things. When we think on positive things, our brain releases that BDNF factor, which is a fertilizer to our neurons, which makes our brain healthier. We don't live in much of a positive society, and we are surrounded by negative all the time. So when God has designed the brain to function, He's designed it to function into that positive attitude so that our brain functions in the way He's designed it to function. So keeping that healthy is really critical. So again, all the stuff that you encourage people to eat and to do, the clean stuff, the water, your brain's almost 90% water, so it's got to stay hydrated, all that kind of stuff. Keeping our brain healthy is going to keep our thought process healthy, and when our thought process is healthy, then our behavior is a whole lot more healthy.
Well, honestly, I feel like I've just been to church, and like the really, really good kind of church, because this information is so critical for us to actually understand. And to me, it's freeing to know that I have a choice,
really,
and I can actually empower myself to live more positively and more healthily. Optimal health, that's what we're going for, to be able to live the best life on this earth that we possibly can in this body, whatever that means for you, because everybody is in a different place. But I do believe that everyone is offered optimal health. Whatever situation you're in, we can be better.
Absolutely. A lot better. You mentioned choice. When you understand mind-brain function, that the brain is a processor of what the mind sends it, then that gives you a better understanding that you're in charge of the choices that you make, because we make the choice with our mind.
Right.
The brain is just going to function whatever our choices are. So when you realize that even though there may be a behavior that you want to shift, you don't think you can get out of, neurologically, that's really not true, because when you make the choice in your mind for the right thing, and obviously we know God's Word is pretty clear on what the right thing is, when you make the choice for the right thing, then your brain is just going to function better. It's going to make the choice that your mind makes.
Right.
So the choice is yours. We do have a choice as to what we think. But we're so geared to just go with the flow of all the input that comes into our lives that we just are inundated with all kinds of negative stuff that influences us to make bad choices rather than good choices.
Yep. What I try to teach people is to be mindful, because mindfulness can actually save the day in so many ways. So will you share with us a couple of ways that you have found to actually help change these neural pathways to function in the way that we really want them to, especially someone just getting started that isn't where we are yet?
Okay. It's the thought process, it's the understanding that when you shift to another thought process, it will give you a different look than the thought process that is creating the behavior that you want to change. Let's say somebody eats too much cornflakes or whatever, or frosted flakes or whatever. Well, if they want to start not eating too much Frosted Flakes, if they sit down in the morning with the Frosted Flakes in front of them and go, I'm not going to eat Frosted Flakes, I'm not going to eat Frosted Flakes, well, they're spending time thinking about Frosted Flakes. But if they would sit down, not with Frosted Flakes out of the picture, that they would sit down and put the cantaloupe or strawberries or blueberries down and go, I'm going to eat blueberries. I'm going to eat. It's not a sticking your head in the sand over the reality of Frosted Flakes. It's just you're not concentrating on Frosted Flakes.
Yes.
You shift that thinking to, I'm going to eat blueberries, and I'm going to eat strawberries, and I'm going to enjoy this vitamin C that's coming from all of this. And if you spend more time thinking about what you're going to do on a positive level for something that's good for you, that will eventually develop a neurological pathway that will override the old pathway of eating Frosted Flakes.
Absolutely. I love it. So we're focusing on what we're going to do instead of focusing on what we don't want to do, the bad habit,
right,
and then head in that direction one day at a time. And if we fall back and we eat the Frosted Flakes, we're not going to beat ourselves up.
Exactly. There's therefore now no condemnation.
Exactly. And we're going to do it better next time.
Exactly.
So to what I would say is get the Frosted Flakes out of the house.
Exactly.
And then that will help, right?
Will.
Because we have to take baby steps. And, even for me as a seasoned person that has been eating clean and healthy for several years, I know what not to do. Like, there are certain things that are stronger temptations for me, and if I come across it, it's not a big deal, but you keep it in my face,
right,
like Snickers. Actually had a situation not too long ago where they kept bringing Snickers in the house and filling this bowl.
Okay.
For the first 3 days, I was fine, but I do love them. And so then that fourth day, I was bored, and I'm not saying that this is the worst thing ever. I'm just giving an example.
Right.
Then I gave in, and then you know what? I had a negative response, and my stomach didn't feel great, and I remembered why I stopped eating Snickers in the first place.
Right. Exactly.
And so I went to the grocery store, and I got what would satisfy me in a healthy way, so that as this bowl was still filled for the next several days with Snickers, I could say no. So I made a choice. Exactly. I did something about it. This can be very deep for so many people on so many levels, because some people are surrounded by negative people.
Situations, circumstances.
And they own what's going on around them.
Right.
And so what kind of advice, and I know that's this would just be a stepping stone on where they can head in the situation like that to try to pull out of it.
Right. And the best thing to do in those kind of situations, even though people live in terribly negative situations, okay? Any kind of situation that is just constantly in your face, so to speak. One of the best things you can do for those situations is find those times where you can get out of that situation, even if it's just for a little bit. And when you get out of that situation and you feel that ability to breathe a little bit better, that's going to put some more positive thought, more active thought in your brain as to what it can be, so that when you go back into that situation, you just don't get quite as inundated with it, because you've got this other thought out there that says, there is a power available to me, and we understand where that is coming from a Christian perspective. That's just the Holy Spirit of God living in us. But we have that ability to access that power, so that when we do get back in those difficult situations, there's some hope there. And and as long as there's hope,
yes,
there's always a way to move to a better situation.
That's right. And that's the exciting part. So there is a much bigger picture. And if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me to be able to get the answers to that. But in the Bible, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and self-control. And we don't have access to those without the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
So when we get that in here, and the more time that we actually spend in the Word and with the Lord, then those things pour out as we give Him permission to access those things. And the exciting thing is, you can be in situations that aren't optimal, but still be optimal.
Right.
deflect it.
Exactly.
So really the power comes from the word. But just all of these different components, just to know the difference between the mind and the brain. And to me, it's exciting and empowering to know that, like we said earlier, we have a choice.
We do have a choice.
So I hope that you will take that choice and that you will start making really good ones. Not that you're not already, but for some of those that are struggling, no judgment here, as if we all struggle. Right. But for those of you, it's just food for thought. And so that's what my mission is to just kind of get light bulbs to go on, because this was a light bulb for me, and it actually started here with Steve. And he helped to kind of lead and guide me in the power that I have. I had suffered from some anxiety, and learning that I can pull out of that completely just by what am I thinking, where am I spending my time, and also having to nourish my body to be able to support and have those resources. So it's a full package, and I'm so thankful for it, and I wanted to take this time to share that with you guys. So I want to thank you for taking this time out. Hope that you guys have been blessed. And if you are looking, do you coach online, just in person?
We do virtual.
Okay, so they do virtual coaching as well. And if you are local to this area, Powdersville, Easley area, even Greenville, you can reach out to them, and I will actually put their information in the description below. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I really would like to hear from you. What did you think about this information? Is it new to you, or is it old school? It's something that you have dealt with and are thankful that you learned the same information. Let us know. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for more so you'll be notified when something else comes your way. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Let me pray with it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity and this time. The technology that we live in today is amazing, and we just pray that all of it would be for your glory, and even in this session, in Jesus' name.
Amen.